Good evening, good people. Look at the bear already trying to take my shine from me. You will not do that, my friend. Not this month. Good evening, everyone. I'm Doug Handy.
And I'm Abir Shanawi, and welcome to Real Talk, Our Space. I'm not taking your shine. Stop acting like it. Whatever. What are we going to sing that song from Moana, Shiny, Shiny? What? No, wait a minute. Yeah, Shiny. And then, of course, Beyonce has that song.
Yeah, I will not be, because I am not familiar. So it is September, good people. In addition to my birthday month, we are kicking off a new theme. Brother's Gonna Work It Out. All right. So in August, we had an all-female slate of guests. We had a great time with those guests. This month, we have a full slate of the fellas. So, Abir, what's your take on that?
Well, I was speaking to my sister, it was funny because she's like, "Oh, I see, you got an all-male lineup. You got to be equal." So it is 2020, right? So before we get to about that, let's just look at this lineup. Seriously.
Yes.
It's like the best, you know me, I love football. So it's like having like the all-star, all-star team, like the best defense.
All first teamers.
Absolutely, right. And we're kicking it off with an amazing guest today. So that's our lineup. That's why we're excited for September. And of course, the last one is a family affair. And I'm biased. My brother going to be on that show. So it's fun.
And a couple of my brothers from another mother. So
yeah, mine is from my real mother. So, but I'm excited because September does look like it's a great show. Brothers are going to work it out, and I'm very impressed. Good job, Douglas.
Thank you. I tried. Got to represent.
And thank you for reminding me about your birthday, which is like next week, right?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. I'll remind you and all the audience. So,
okay.
Gotta say hi to Sahar. I don't think we can get on air without Sahar. So,
nope.
Hello. But it's not just us, right? We have our very special guest.
Yes.
And also do want you all to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? So please be a part of the Real Talk Our Space family. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show your commitment to fine programming that we do for the people.
Because also, if you can't catch the show, it's always uploaded and you can watch it later.
Yes, you can. Good.
All right.
Yep.
So our guest today is the amazing, the fabulous. And before, again, we introduce our guest, nothing, as you keep saying, there are no coincidences in life, right? So I believe it was our third show where we had Professor Adrienne Washington on. We were talking and she's phenomenal. And I met her before and I thought she was amazing. And then she's the one who actually, asked if, her brother would like to be on the show. And we're like, sure. And so now we have her brother on the show. So no coincidences in life. And we would like to thank Adrienne for introducing us to this amazing person. So what we would like to do is we'd like to introduce our first guest for this episode. Now we're using the Power Station Podcast Executive Director, Stephen Weber, gave us permission to show a video clip from the podcast. So this is our guest, who is Will Wells. And without further ado, let us watch this intro.
Will Wells is a producer, songwriter, professional musician, and recording engineer. He recently served as executive producer and co-writer of the critically acclaimed debut album from Anthony Ramos, The Good and the Bad. Will met Anthony while working as electronic music producer on the Tony, Grammy, and Pulitzer Prize-winning Broadway musical Hamilton. In 2019, Will was commissioned by ESPN to write the first ever theme for the Heisman Trophy ceremony and music direct the national live television broadcast. Recently, Will collaborated with Gabe Foxbeck to produce Stand Up, the end title song for the Harriet Tubman biopic Harriet, performed by the film's lead character, Cynthia Erivo. Stand Up received nominations for Best Song from the Golden Globes, Critics' Choice Awards, NAACP Image Awards, and the Academy Awards.
bring me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on.
Will studied film scoring and music production and engineering at Berklee College of Music, where he was one of my most memorable students. Since then, he's crafted an impressive resume working with many renowned artists, including Imagine Dragons, Logic, Wyclef Jean, RZA and Wu-Tang Clan, DJ Premier, LMFAO, Quincy Jones, Pentatonix, and many more in the studio and on stage.
I don't wanna be alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So without further ado, welcome Will Wells.
Hello. How's
Welcome,
everybody
welcome.
doing? Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank
Yep.
you for being on our show.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
So, Will, with that body of work, a lot to cover. We're going to jump right in. So,
Mhm.
first question: the bio talked about your study at Berklee College of Music. So, could you give us the Will Wells story before that? You were born, and
I was
so you could,
sure. Yeah, I was born the youngest of 6, so it was
Cool.
always a party in the house, always. And I have an incredible relationship with all of my siblings. We all love each
Mhm.
other very much, and that comes from the top down, from
Mhm.
king and queen. My mother and father, who are people that I look up to, not just as parents, but as human beings.
Mm.
Shout out to my mother. She just released her first book. The thing that I
Oh,
love about them is
nice.
they never
Wow.
stop progressing. And so
Nice.
that was the environment that we were brought up in, it's just always pursuing excellence, like we're
Mhm.
talking about here, and always trying to figure out ways to keep going and not only make ourselves better and strive to be better, but strive to surround ourselves with people of like minds, and also just edify and lift up the people around us.
Mhm.
So that was the environment that I grew up in. And so I was really mostly about athletics and sports
Mm.
in my earlier childhood, say through middle school. And even before then, my mother would tell me stories about how I was always intrigued by music, whether it was, as a young boy in church, running up to the organ and slapping on the keys, or,
Mhm.
and eventually I started to learn music by ear, which became quite critical to my career.
Mhm.
And the skill set that I have. But I would just listen to all the music that my older siblings were listening to and try and pick it apart. I remember I had sisters listening to everybody from Brian McKnight to John
Mm.
Mayer to Tupac, you name it, the
Mhm.
genre. And of course, there was a lot of gospel in the household because I'm the children of not one but 2 pastors. So
Oh, okay.
it was a really eclectic mix of music in the house, which I'm also grateful for. And you don't realize how these different things just set you up and all contribute to the path that you're going to take. So I was filled with music from a young age and started learning by ear and,
Mm.
doing everything that I could. I felt like I was insatiable. I was a sponge.
Mhm.
And I took any opportunity to learn more and more about music. And I remember the first turning point before attending Berklee College of Music was during the 5-week summer program. My eldest sister, Tina Wells, had helped me attend this program because it was so funny. It was actually what today we would consider, it was unsolicited mail because I was I didn't study piano long, but for the little bit that I did, as soon as you sign up, especially back in that day, they had you on the mailing list and that was a wrap.
Mhm.
So anything music related, whether it was flyers for Guitar Center or, for the Berklee College of Music 5-week summer program, we would get them from time to time. And I was really interested. And so, my parents and my sister helped send me to that program, which really changed my life because for me as a young child, I was 15 years old, and attending this program was the first time I realized that there were people even nearly as obsessed with music as I was. And it was a game changer. And
Mm.
so that's how that journey began. And when I came back from that summer program, I had discovered, a lot more about music theory and the, basically what I needed to balance out what I've been doing my whole life, which was
Mhm.
learning by ear. And so I remember, I'll never forget, I was at that summer program and I just kept buying more and more books. And I remember my sister's like, "You need me to send you money again? Like, is everything okay?" I was like, no, it's fine. Trust, I'm just buying books. That's it. I'm not up to any mischief and I'm not trying to be frivolous, but I couldn't get enough of the knowledge.
Mm.
And, you know, that ended up paying off because little did I know, a lot of these books that I was buying, you know, these Berkeley Press books from the Berkeley bookstore would be books that contributed to the first year curriculum at the college. And, you know, being a child in a family at times of humble means,
Mhm.
it was really important. You know, I remember when my mother and I realized, like, wait, I could test out of all these classes, and that's tuition I don't have to spend
Mhm.
on classes because I already took the time to learn things that are taught in those classes. And so I ended up testing out of about a year of classes.
Oh, wow. That is a
And
game changer money right there.
that's when, and I was too young to understand that,
Really appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yep.
but and appreciate it, exactly. But
Mhm.
you know, that was the beginning. That's the abridged version. But
Right.
Where did you
right.
grow up? What part of the country did you grow up in, Will?
I grew up on the East Coast, South
Mm.
Jersey, near Philadelphia.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. So,
Right. And we're going to get into that a little later, talk a little about maybe the alma mater, the high school, and what you still
Mhm.
do with them, right? So before, Abir, I know you're about to jump in here, did want to recognize, give a shout out to Erica Lynette. So she's
hello.
on and she's excited.
That's
You,
so
you
cool.
mentioned family, Will, so she
I
was
do.
welcome. Erica, thank you for joining us
Yes.
this evening.
Yeah. And we have something in common. Well, I'm the second of 6 kids. So I know what you
Wow.
mean by, you know, it's always a party in the house. And again, we're very close. And so at the time when you're younger, you're like, God, there's too many people in the house. But as you get older, that connection is awesome. So so you spoke about music and understanding in the process, and this is actually a question my daughter had, and I got some brownie points when I told them that you wrote for Hamilton because they love Hamilton. Confession here, I haven't watched the play yet. I'm sorry. As a history,
What?
well, as a history major, I
You never told me that.
thought I did. I
It's
think I did.
available to you now, fortunately.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I
Disney
wasn't going to
Plus.
pay that much money, but
Right.
as a
Well, I
history
saw it in
major,
Baltimore. Will say I didn't see it on Broadway. My mother and my sister did though, so I know they're very anxious to hear about this next component. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I should clarify because we're very sensitive in the music industry.
Uh-huh.
I am not a writer on the show. I did not contribute to any of the intellectual property. I'm
Mhm.
the electronic music producer, so I helped
Sure.
bring the vision to fruition.
Well, which is great for this question, which my daughter wanted to ask you, which is what's your process for creating music for a musical or a movie? Like, what is it? She's wondering, what is it? Does it sound like a particular way in your head and then it comes out? How does that process go?
Yeah, so I did study music production and engineering and film scoring at Berklee College of Music, and I learned a lot of incredible techniques to figure out how to translate what we would just consider adjectives from a director or somebody that is not a musician.
Okay.
So when you are creating music for a film score, for example, you're working with a team and you are usually one of the departments of music. I mean, there are others that deal with audio and post-production, but when it comes down to the music, you are the person that is communicating on behalf of that part of the project, but you have to
Mm,
communicate with people who didn't study music for a living.
right.
And so this was incredibly useful. I had an awesome teacher named Sheldon Mirowitz, and he would just have us write down adjectives. And from there, we would develop our orchestra. We would select what instruments needed to be utilized in order to communicate a certain emotion based on
So
the set of
fascinating.
adjectives that we have. And I actually still use this technique to this day. It's like, okay,
Can you give us an example?
of course, yeah. So
Mhm.
we know that there are going to be many, many very sad moments that
Mm,
need to be represented with an instrument that can make you feel immediately. And so take a solo violin, for example. That as
mhm.
soon as you hear that, and it's funny because that's almost a
Right.
stereotype, right? Which is why it's an
Right.
easy example to give, but
Right.
people are like, "Oh my gosh, I hear violins playing."
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But you
Right.
can draw
Right.
that connection for a reason. And
Correct.
there are other things like, Corky, for example. There's an instrument called a marimba, and when you hear it, it just kind of has that a
Mhm.
little bit of that Corky feel. Or a xylophone. You used to hear that in a lot of
Mhm.
cartoons, and so things like that where we really want to be able to translate what our creative collaborators have in their mind into the musical equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
So that's the
Wonderful.
beginning
And
of
then
that process, and that's for the music side, and a lot of what has to do with film scoring. And when it comes to writing a musical, you know, I did write a short musical with my brother, one of my best friends, Anthony Ramos.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nativity musical, and
Mm.
that process was really interesting because it just required a lot of research and digging and getting to the heart of what we wanted to say and figuring out the best way, not only to say it from song to song, but understanding how this works, not only as just individual pieces, but how we can thread the needle between them.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it a lot of times, like if you really, now you have the opportunity to watch Hamilton again and again and again,
Correct.
works that are of that upper echelon, you can understand
Mhm.
how much detail is actually put into something like that, where you hear themes, we call them leitmotifs, that come
Mm.
back time and time again. And it really makes for a cohesive project.
Fascinating. So now I have to watch
Very
Hamilton, but you know, as a history major, I'm going to dissect it. Like, yes,
Yes,
no,
you do.
no.
Yes. And you got the soundtrack too that you can put on continuous play, like I've done as well. So you
That's
got
true.
plenty of options. So, Will, you see some of our listeners or some of our audience members are artists themselves. So Julia is a
Mhm.
colleague of ours from A Beer and
Mhm.
Me from our day job. She is a visual artist. Then she
Mhm.
might be a musician too. I don't want to sell anybody short. I know she's a visual artist.
Mhm.
So you see her comment. So let's talk about some of the folks you worked with.
Mhm.
Definitely some household names, if you will. A couple of them jump out to me. Legends, right? Quincy Jones, Barbara Streisand. Can you just tell us a little bit what it was like to work with legendary caliber,
Mhm.
legend caliber musicians?
It's so interesting that those are the two examples that you chose, because they could not have been more polarizing professional experiences. And there's
Oh,
nothing negative
interesting.
about that
Right, right.
whatsoever. But Barbara Streisand, for example, sometimes I hesitate to even include that, but it was a pivotal experience for me, because working with somebody like her was probably at the simplest level, like entry level job that I would get out of college, which was I was working for my mentor at Woodshed Recording in Malibu, which was the
Mhm.
first place that I kind of got my chops as a house engineer, a chief engineer. And the thing is, when you bring in clients, and I mean, his clientele list is extensive,
Mm.
literally talk about household names. But, you know, he was really excellent at putting people in the right place with other individuals that he saw opportunity for more to happen with. You know, for
Mhm.
example, he's the one. Just quick shout out. I'm going to divert quickly. Just a shout out to Richard Gibbs,
Go
because
for it.
you know
Yeah.
the same. It's interesting. The same job that I was doing on the Barbra Streisand Partners album sessions was the same thing I was doing at first for RZA and with
Mm.
Logic. And it's the simplest thing. I'm the assistant, because usually artists of that caliber will bring in their own personnel to work.
Mhm.
And so my job is to make sure that everybody is comfortable, all details are paid attention to. So my job on the Partners album as an assistant engineer that day was actually to take care of Barbara's room. So that was
Oh.
everything
Mhm.
from fulfilling her rider to, you know, making sure that that little extra TLC was included. And he told me straight up, he's like, "This is why I'm bringing you in. I know you pay attention to detail." Thank you,
Mm.
Mom. I feel like I get that from Mom Dukes.
Shout
He
out.
said,
Shout out to Mom
he
Dukes.
said, "I know you pay attention to detail." So it's about just going that little extra mile. You know, I remember
Mhm.
doing research, because we would always have to research before any client came in.
Mhm.
And I realized that there was a Barber color, and there
Mm.
was a certain almost rose pink color that was named the Barber color. So I found it. Richard's wife, Linda Gibbs, is a graphic, brilliant artist, designer, and much, much more. That's it's almost like belittling just to narrow her down to that. But outside of being an incredible human, she had an incredible collection of these artistic pens. You know, but it's not just like a set of markers. I'm talking they're Pelican. So I found this specific color that matched closest to this Barber color, and that's what I labeled her headphone mixer with, and things like that. You know?
Oh, smart.
And
Yeah.
so but that, Richard knew what he was doing, and that, he wanted somebody that would just get it right. So that's one less thing he had to worry about. And, but also just being in that environment. I mean, Kenny Edmonds, Babyface was producing, and Walter Afanasieff, who is one of the greatest songwriters of our time that many people may not even realize. I'm talking All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Oh,
Okay.
And much else in the Mariah Carey catalog, which I grew up on. If my brother Marcus is watching or watches later, he's a big fan of Mariah and thinks that he can hit the high notes just like she.
Should we bring him on the show one day to prove it?
I know, right?
I absolutely think that we should. I know my family's rolling too. But being able to absorb and observe that process for as much as I could from a respectful distance was really important to me, because I think as much as doing it is critical to your growth and your improvement in the pursuit of excellence, watching how it's done and taking notes to figure out what your goal is or what the mark is definitely equally as important. And so that session was great. Now the Quincy Jones session, I think I always characterize it like this. I say, if there's ever a way that a music producer / music director will want to meet his hero, I feel like it was this way. I was working with this incredible vocalist who at the time was underneath his management. Her name is Nikki Yanofsky, a Canadian singer and a prodigy, and he was executive producing her album. And so we were doing some live stuff for the CBC in Canada, and I was the music director and I had my band, and he was producing the session. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting at the grand piano at Capitol Studios, the Nat, they called it, because it was the piano that Nat King Cole played.
Oh, okay.
And he turns back to me and goes, "This band is smoking, man." And I was like, "Is that it? Am I done?"
Wow.
As you can see, very, very polarizing experiences, but equally critical to my growth and my development.
Absolutely.
As a professional.
Wow, that's impressive. So before we move on, also, your sister Adrian says, "Oh my gosh, no."
She's weighing in about Marcus singing. Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be great, conversation piece. So I like how you talk about that experience is good for your career, because people always think that it has to be, especially nowadays with the younger generation, I think you have to come right out of the gate ready to go, and everything has to start from the top. And your story of how you were an assistant and you were just doing all these smaller tasks, as they would say, and how you look at it as something that gave you growth is really good to hear, because I think kids nowadays also need to hear it, because they think people start from the top when they don't.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
And Abir also, and Will, the pursuit, because we did get the title of our show straight off of Will's website, the pursuit of excellence. We're talking about, like you said, even picking the barber color, like being excellent at anything that you're actually putting your time, energy, effort into. So yes, young people, listen.
Yes.
I'll never forget, one of my favorite examples of this is when I was at Berklee College of Music. I'll never forget, I became, I guess, kind of known for arranging and conducting, because I was a short little guy that wore tux with tails and like danced while I did it on stage, and I'll never forget, once I started to really catch a stride with doing these arrangements, and it would be Monday rehearsals during a semester, by the way, like a double major, full schedule. And I always had at least 2 jobs for the entirety of my Berklee experience.
Wow.
And this is extracurricular, but it was so critical to my growth and my experience, because I would walk into this room, and eventually I started doing quite a lot of arrangements for these shows. And I'm grateful that they gave me more responsibility, because the more you have to sink your teeth into, the more you can learn. And I told myself at the beginning, it was probably the second or third time I did the show, it's called Singer Showcase. I said, okay, when I write this chart, when I notate, I want to make sure that the only hand that goes up after the first time that they read the chart down and play through it top to bottom is a question that is about information I just could not have included on the chart. So did I do my due diligence? Did I really pursue excellence to give them as much information as they need and not too much, and also give them room to have fun? I would come up with craziest, like tempo titlings, and tempo markings rather, and just things that would make them laugh, because that's important. That contributes as well, because you want them to feel comfortable and you want them
Right.
to feel like you're not too stiff, because it comes through in the music. And so
Mhm.
little things like that from these opportunities were quite critical to figuring out, okay, this is what I want my brand to be. I want my brand to be, when people know that we're going to collaborate on something together, I'm not going to stop until I know that we've done everything we can to be as excellent as possible without driving each other crazy. Because you got to know when to let go too.
Right,
That's true.
right.
That's
Mhm.
true. So we do have a question from our audience before we
Okay.
move on, from Sahar, who says, "How has music shaped your worldview, Will, and the power and value of the arts for young people?"
Wow,
Hmm.
that's an incredible question. Well, I think the beginning of that comes from the first time I ever left the country. So my mentor, Steven Weber, who uh, I did the Power Station podcast with, he
Hmm.
was the first person to ever take me out of the country. And I
Hmm.
remember getting my passport, and he tells the story. He's like, "Oh man, you were so cute in the airport, all excited." We were going to Finland,
Oh.
and it was to work with the U.S. Embassy of Finland to do something I didn't know what it was called back then, but we were doing cultural diplomacy
Very
and
cool.
working with college students and
Hmm.
sometimes high school students. And that really planted a seed in me to understand how having access not only to different kinds of music, we were part of Steven Weber's group called the Scratch Ambassadors. So we were bringing hip hop as part of our cultural diplomacy.
Mm.
And that sounds like a
Nice.
really, really fancy way to say it, but that's exactly what it is. Experiencing different cultures, but also bringing yours to theirs,
Hmm.
bringing part of your culture, US culture, to these other places around the world and
Right.
sharing with them so that we can all broaden our worldview.
Hmm.
And, that, like I said, it planted a seed. And so from there, I realized how powerful it is to see the joy in the eyes of people who perhaps don't have upfront, front row access to music like this. And the
Hmm.
tour with Imagine Dragons, fast forward, 6 years later,
Hmm.
was this at the largest of scales. We did a world tour about 2 years, well over 40 countries, over 100 shows. And this showed me the world. And in seeing the world, it was really critical to my learning that a few things. One, that we are all more alike than we like to believe.
Correct.
There are certain things that we all feel. We all feel joy. We all
Hmm.
feel pain. We all cry.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hopefully, we all smile. Um,
Right.
and so really distilling it down to these key factors that make us human,
Hmm.
regardless of race, religion, color, or creed, was an important experience for broadening my perspective. And I think that traveling, not only just for cultural diplomacy, but in general, is really important for broadening your perspective, because you can start to understand people that didn't grow up under the same circumstances as you do, or that are not like you.
Hmm. And in Finland, I mean, when you think of Finland or the Scandinavian countries, what more was it, homogenous countries can you think of? So
Right.
you going there and giving not just like American experience, but also the Black African American experience, which they probably, we know, again, going with their society. So that's very, very impressive. And like Sahar says, cultural diplomacy. We need more of that. I can tell you for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
So you speak a lot about your experiences and you as growing up. So the question is, tell us about some of your visits to your alma mater, Timber Creek High School in Ariel, New Jersey. Is that how you say
Yes.
it? Ariel, New Jersey. And I know you're big on giving back to the community and helping out other students or teens or what have you. So can you tell us about that experience?
Absolutely. Well, this all began in the fall of 2012,
Mm,
because I was talking with another friend of mine from from high school. Excuse me. I do keep in touch with quite a few friends from high school, and I just like keeping in touch with people in general,
mhm.
especially people I meet around the world, because
Mm.
I will be back, and I want to hang out again.
Very
Love
neat.
it.
And she was telling me how the teachers were struggling because a lot of the laws were changing and a lot of
Mm,
funding was shifting from arts programs. And by
mhm.
shifting, I mean being drained.
Right.
Mm.
And I went to visit just to check in with a lot of my old favorite teachers, and I could tell that the mood had shifted a little bit. And we started to get to talking, and they were telling me things without disclosing names, of course.
Mhm.
It's like, you know, programs that I came up through in high school, like wind ensemble and, you know, marching band, not that one in particular, but programs like that that were critical to keeping me out of trouble as a
Right.
young man. They were losing funding, and that just broke my heart because I know that in the pursuit of, I keep saying this, but in the pursuit of excellence, had
Right.
I not had these things to challenge me further, I'm not sure if I would have grown in the same way that I did. And
Mm.
once I had a conversation with some of these teachers and recognized that this is going to be a two-way battle. One, this means I have to keep on pressing forth with my own goals to try and get enough notoriety for the purpose of having influence in
Mm.
rooms where sometimes, you know, if you have, you know, if you've worked on a song that was nominated for an Oscar or what have you, or a musical that won awards, they'll take you a little bit more seriously. And, you know,
Mhm.
I say
Right.
Mhm.
sad but true, but I also understand, you know,
Mhm.
because there's weight behind the
Correct.
resume. And
Right.
so, and I'm definitely, I don't consider myself there yet. That's still the ongoing process. But I did realize that there's something I can do right now, which is give the students something that I didn't have as frequently as I would have wanted it when I was a student there. And that is people who are doing something that I would like to do, that come from the same place that I did, that can tell me
Mm.
about all of the different opportunities
Yep.
available to me within music.
Mm.
Because as a high school student, for music, you know, I was like, okay, you become a teacher,
Mhm.
you play in an orchestra, but I didn't know about all of these other things that you can do. There's so much, whether it's, you know, being a music editor for
Mm.
film scoring or being, you know, a music supervisor. And this is all film related, but there's so much outside of
Mhm.
that. The music business is so large and there's so much opportunity.
Mhm.
And fortunately, because of how social media exploded since I was in high school, there's a lot more access that students have to seeing people that do different things like this. But the reason it all started is because I wanted to be able to encourage students and show them that I came from the same place that they did.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's really important to me that they understand that we can do this. And we don't have to be victims of our circumstance if we really put our
Mm.
minds to something and we think outside the box and really just pursue what it is that we want to do and think in the way of solutions instead of,
Mhm.
you know, wallowing in the problems.
Wow.
Love it. Love it. Have the
Doug and I
educator and me. Yeah, right. We
I
just
know, we're like, mm.
right.
Because
Right.
Doug and I always talk about how the importance of, you know, when people make it big. You know, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and some of, you know, my family did, and, you know, rough streets, rough neighborhoods, and, you know, parents always strive to have a better life for their kids. But the importance of going back, like you said, and letting those kids know, I was here at one time, and this is what you need to do in order to, you know, live the dream that you're thinking of. And it's very important to give back to the community. And I think that was very powerful of how you
Right.
said it. And, you know, to show that representation,
Definitely.
as you could
Definitely.
say. Mm-hmm.
And Abir, before our next question, I
Mm-hmm.
like I appreciate Jason's comment. So Jason's, you know, alumni can have such a positive effect on schools,
Mm-hmm.
boost spirit, raise teacher morale, encourage students, and more. And the
Mm-hmm.
encouragement of students is something, you know, we talked about. And I would say, as a former teacher,
Mm-hmm.
where I taught the actor Edward Norton, he was one of our famous alums.
Yes.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it instills that pride in you, right? And then we actually had Zach Brown,
Right.
who's I think he's still in the NFL, but Zach Brown, football player. Actually, I taught Zach directly. So,
Wow.
but no, it generates that pride, like you said,
Right.
as a teacher. And then we always talk about that's the reward. You want to see your students do well. So,
Mm-hmm.
Will, when you go back, whether that was your teacher directly or some, you know, right? Is that
Yeah.
so? I love that comment from Jason.
Yeah. It
Mm-hmm.
was so important for me as well to let the teachers know the impact that they had on my life
Mm-hmm.
because,
Yes, yes.
you know, when it seems like things are being taken away from them from the
Mm-hmm.
administrative level, they should know that there's so much that they can do that, and so much they are doing that they don't even realize they're doing to
Mhm.
mold the hearts and the minds of these students. So it's really important for me to let all the teachers that had such a huge influence on me know that they did.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And that's the
Teachers
message I
love
give.
that.
Yeah, that's what I say. I
Mm-hmm.
tell my nieces and nephews, like, please do that. That means the world
Right.
to teachers. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for doing it.
I'd also have to give a shout out to Jason Patrick, who I was actually his department chair when he was a first year teacher. So we have that connection. And thank you, Jason, for tuning in. I appreciate it. That's great. We do have one more question from the audience before we move on. We have Marzel, who we love. She says, I have read that rap, a song, a dance are the way to go to engage Black students in learning. I'm wondering about thoughts on this.
I think that there are definitely things that we can assume will connect to a certain demographic of students. But the key in that is assume. Growing up for me, I was actually more inclined to be drawn to Bach than I was to hip hop.
Okay.
Love it.
But I also understand that for me, I may have been an outlier, So I think that it's really about getting to learn your students as humans and individuals.
Correct.
Yep.
And then you figure out how you can engage with them. Because for me, it's interesting because I talked about this before, and it's going into an office where or even meeting somebody and I say, yeah, I make music, and sometimes they assume that I do hip hop or rap. And I was like, actually, I'm on tour with a rock and roll band, but I like that music as well, So that's why I think that individual connection is paramount in how you figure out the best way to engage and approach. And ask
Speaking
questions.
of rock and roll, this is one of my favorite pictures that you
Love
sent
that.
us.
Love it.
I
Yes.
love this picture. Seriously, I don't know maybe it's the color scheme. I don't know, but speaking of
And
rock
the
and
motion,
roll,
you can feel the motion in there.
and the
Like you're either
smile.
on one toe or you might be levitating. Well, you're getting.
And you want
That's
to know
like-
the funniest thing about that photo?
Sure.
That's on a hip hop tour.
Okay, fine. You took away the element, whatever. So
Love it. No,
speaking of-
but this is why we're so excited to have Will on, right? I mean, the range.
yes.
That was
Yes.
Mike Holland, by the way. Mike Holland took that photo, and he's an incredible
it's a
photographer.
great
Right,
picture.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, respect them.
Yeah.
Everybody's tour with Logic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's the
see.
album that 1-800 came off of, and many other pretty influential songs of that summer of 2017. Yeah.
Very nice.
Very
That's a
cool.
good segue, I think, to our next question, right? So we saw Will on tour. We've heard about you in the studio. What's your preference, Will? Are you more comfortable on the stage or in the studio? Do you have a preference?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't, and I want to do it all for the rest of my life.
Love it. Love it.
Obviously, I'm happy that I did the world tour, in my mid-20s, because I know that well, actually, I can't say that I know, but I imagine I won't be running around the world, at least with the frequency and in the capacity that I did, in my mid-20s. But, touring for me, what that looks like has definitely changed in terms of how I want to participate and engage in that. And that's just with people that I love, the homies, and playing music that I feel a part of and feel some sort of ownership, even if it's just heart ownership of,
Yep.
And that's different than, being a side musician with a group and playing somebody else's songs, which I love to do as well. Don't get me wrong, but and maybe this is just, welcome to your early 30s, goals are shifting and I'm on a path, but
Wait until you get to your 40s.
Right.
but
There you go.
I definitely see myself at least playing shows, maybe not touring in that capacity, but playing shows for the rest of my life, because I love to feel music in that way. And it's such a different experience. It's almost like picking between your children.
Okay. Right. Can't ask you to do that. So we wouldn't ask you want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so, but being in the studio is just a different kind of magic.
Right.
It really is, because you're being a part, you're playing a part in the inception, the sometimes the creative catalyst for something that can touch so many people. And that's also important. It's either you're creating it from the ground up or you're sharing it with the world. And they're both really wonderful and beautiful experiences that I want to be a part of as long as I'm able.
So you got to tell us, who is Lisa Wells? She's saying that photo is everything.
Another family member, I'm thinking.
Yes. That
Awesome.
is the youngest of 4 sisters.
Love
Okay.
it. Love it. The Wells family is representing.
Yes.
Love it. Love it.
So
I love
that's
it.
Love the
awesome.
energy. Yes.
So I am a huge football fan, and I'm happy that I'm asking this question. Doug knows me well, but I'm so sad there's no football this year. But anyway, so
No college football, I
Will
guess,
Wells.
right?
No, I'm not. I used to. I'm not college football anymore. I don't know. It's a different story.
Yeah. But the
NFL
pros are
for me.
playing. Well, I'm sorry. NFL's playing, but I digress. Go ahead. We'll talk later.
It's not. Yeah, it's not the same. So the question is, Will Wells and the whole team winning. So how did you get the Heisman Trophy ceremony project happen? And I want to add to that one, how did you come up with that name for the band?
So I'll answer that in reverse order. So
Okay.
Anthony Ramos and I, we have a company. Our first collective is called Whole Team Winning because that's just what we believe in. We want all the homies to win. We want to come up with the people that we love.
Mm-hmm.
That's our ethos. That's our motto. And he was gracious enough. I mean, the band that we play in is called Whole Team Winning. You know, whether
Love
it's
it.
Anthony touring or we're playing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him if he was cool with me using that on the broadcast, and he was. And
Great.
it's just some
Thank
of my
you.
best friends. I know,
Right,
you know,
right.
For example, my drummer Al Cleveland III. I've been playing with him since I was in college, like well over a
Wow.
decade now. You know, Alex Sutton on the guitar, we had Elliot Skinner on the bass, and you know, just being able to share experiences with the people that you love, like I mentioned, was really important to me. That's everything to me because it just makes it so much sweeter and it makes the music so much more honest. So that's how we got the name. Yeah.
I was just going to say, before you talk about the Heisman Trophy, I actually have a clip I'd like to show people with you playing music. So here we go.
We'll get started here. Will Wells and the whole Team Winning Band will add some energy and some ambience tonight inside the theater. We thank them. And as we continue from New York City, we'll begin to meet the four of these finalists and their coaches and their loved ones who've helped shape their journeys to New York City. Heisman Trophy night continues right after this.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Can you
Yeah.
believe that was just December, and here we are.
Really? Are you jealous, Doug?
We talked about this at the beginning of the show. Am I turning green over here?
Oh, that's really cool and impressive. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. So how did how did you get the Heisman Trophy ceremony project?
Yeah, the Heisman story is a really interesting one because I always like to tell people in describing the course of my career that it's all cumulative, and I want to make sure that every previous experience informs the one that follows. And so I actually was the music director for the Heisman Trophy ceremony with this incredible and super cool band called Black Violin in 2016 and 2017. The reason I got that gig is because they reached out to Alex Lacamoire, who is the music director, music supervisor, and orchestrator on Hamilton, for a recommendation on who could work on the Heisman as a music director. And he so very graciously recommended me.
Nice.
And, you know, I worked liaising between the band and the production, and I struck up a really incredible relationship with this wonderful individual named Kate Jackson from ESPN. And we had a really wonderful experience putting this show together. It was fun, and we just almost like we had telepathy. And so I did that 2016, 2017. 2018, they went another direction with the music for the show. And in 2019, they wanted to try something new as well with original music, which they had never had. And so I was so honored that they asked me to not only music direct the show, but actually compose an original theme for it. And so that's how that came about. And I honestly actually followed similar process of what I told you earlier in terms of figuring out what are the key things they want to check off in the emotion checkbox. You know, what do we want to feel? You know, they wanted to feel the intense energy, right? They wanted to feel the glory of winning a game or winning the Heisman. They wanted to have a moment of reverence for players that were fraternity members rather, that were no longer with us. And so I had to create a suite of music that encompassed all of this, but still worked cohesively as one suite of music. You know, it needed to be a piece, but also go through this emotional journey. And it was really fun working through that. And then even more fun being able to perform it live, and live TV is intense. You know?
I bet.
I
mean, it's nerve-wracking.
it was a
Mhm.
joy. You know, it was
Wow.
really fun.
Nice suit, by the way.
Thank you.
Really
Yes,
nice suit.
yes.
Yes, that was a nice. Yeah, yeah. I pay attention to details as well. So, so we'd like to tell our audience, if you like what you see, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes,
Our
please
Real Talk,
subscribe.
Our Space. Yes, we're going to go to a couple of questions before we move on, because we have a couple of comments as well. Would you mind to tell Cecilia? Says, yeah, it's all Tina's fault that I heard about this program tonight. So I'm
That's my
assuming.
oldest sister.
There you go. Oh, that's funny. And then Sahar has a question. Is there an experience, musical capacity you still haven't engaged yet that's on the horizon? By the way, Sahar is an English teacher. So she has all of
Got
these,
it.
great questions and comments as well.
So I wonder when she says musical capacity, if she means like musicals or if she means like of the musical capacity.
You can interpret it any way you like.
Okay.
Right, our space.
Yes.
Well,
Real
actually,
talk.
I will combine the two because
Okay.
I definitely want to finish a long form musical. Like I
Okay.
mentioned, there's one in the works, and that was a really special process being able
Mhm.
to engage in storytelling in that way because I've always heard from growing up and even through college, like I'm a fan of musicals and a lot of you could hear that in a lot of the music that I make. Sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's not, but I just want to be able to not be subtle and write a musical. And I think that would be really fun to use the influence from all of these different experiences to make something unique and something that everybody can enjoy.
Very
Very
good.
nice. So I'm about to say, please grab that one.
Aw, I love the family love you're getting.
The family hour, pursuit of excellence, or the family hour. We could call which
Absolutely.
AKA, right? That's the subtitle of the episode. Love it.
Thank you, Uncle Jimmy.
Love
Aw,
it.
I
I
love
love it.
that. All right. So
I posted
All
on
right.
Facebook. That's how I know. That's where all the family gathers. So
I love,
Hey,
love it. Thank you for
great,
sharing.
great to see you.
Mhm.
So, Will, you talked a little earlier about that attention to detail, some other things that you would tell anyone who's trying to get to where you are in that similar field. What other advice would you give to someone who wants to work as a music producer, songwriter? Of course, you have engineering, sound engineering experience as well. But what kind of advice would you give?
do it every day. Do it
Mm.
as much as you can, and don't be afraid to follow your gut instincts in parallel with the education that you receive. Some of the most important experiences that I've had have been walking side by side with people who had no music education whatsoever. And to be honest, they're some of the people I learned the most from.
Mm.
So,
Could you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean?
sure. I mean, I studied music production and engineering
Right.
and film scoring. And so there's a lot of academic knowledge that I'm
Mhm.
grateful for. But when I first got out of school, I had to shelf that because I was rolling with a crew of people who were incredible music producers, songwriters, really creative, and not academic whatsoever. And
Okay.
so, and in some cases, sometimes that can be intimidating to people who aren't academics,
Mm.
But the key is they're just being honest and they're being vulnerable. And so there are certain things that I think make a great storyteller. And that's what we're doing, whether we're producing music or writing songs. We're
Mhm.
telling stories with that and we're communicating. I always say as a producer, my job is communication, whether it's how the
Love that.
artist is communicating their story into the microphone, or how I'm actually communicating with the people in the booth to make them feel comfortable, or how I'm
Mhm.
communicating with my assistant engineer when I'm engineering to make sure that details are paid attention to.
Mhm.
But all that to say, I think that it was so important that I spent my time with them because it allowed me to step outside the box even more and, return to that childlike state.
Mm.
And a lot of times, aspiring songwriters and producers can be so intimidated because they feel like they just don't know enough yet.
I
And
see.
for me, even as a orchestrator and composer, when I first got to Berkeley, I remember I was so excited when I finally had my first orchestration class. And I was like, all right, I'm finally going to learn how to do this for real.
Mhm.
And when I got into that class, because when I went to Berkeley, I remember and my family probably remembers as well. I had this 460-page book of scores that I had written throughout high school.
Mm.
Wow.
But this is all just, I got this software called Sibelius, a composition software, and I was just doing it. I learned what the ranges of the instruments were, because when I went too low, it would turn red. The note head would turn red. So
Nice.
that's how I learned. And I was like, all right, I'm really going to learn how to do this. And when I got into this class, I realized that I was doing a lot more right than I thought I was.
Mm.
And I think some of the best innovators actually intentionally break the rules.
Mm.
And so don't be afraid to break the rules. Do it a lot. There's a lot more to it than just talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember Will Smith saying once, it's like, I will outwork you. You may be smarter, you may be more talented, but I will outwork you. And trust me, I went to school with thousands of musicians. And it's been a decade now, and I see the ones that have been able to sustain a career in our industry, and it is the ones that work the hardest.
Interesting.
So make sure that you supplement your talent with dedication and the pursuit of excellence.
Yeah. I love how we keep coming back to the theme.
I love it. Right. And it's funny because we didn't write into the question, but I tell you, you might come on like once a month or something. And I know I didn't go all the extra time in your schedule, right?
Right.
I love it.
Shout out to my best friend, my BFF, Shaista's on. She says, yes, music, whether lyrics or instruments, can communicate so much. And she loves that. Absolutely. I think that is what unites people, is music. I mean, I remember, growing up, when I was growing up, I'm not going to show my age, but, you kind of were in pockets. You either listen to, rap, or you listen to rock, or you listen to this. I listen to all of it. I was actually going through this phase right now where I'm listening to a lot of metal hair bands, which are great. But now kids listen to everything, which is great, because it is that one unifier as well. So and it reminds me also, really quick, I digress, but we watched the movie The Founding of McDonald's. And Ray Kroc said the one thing that made him successful was persistence. And it's true. You keep going. And then, like you said, the pursuit of excellence. So thank you for dropping gems today, Will.
All over the episode. Right.
Right. I just love it. So
right. Now, speaking of gems, Bear, this is your question, but I enjoyed the podcast. I know. I enjoyed the podcast, Will, the Power Station podcast, but Bear, you go ahead. See, I'm getting all revved up. Bear, you got it.
So could you expound upon the message to artists from the End of the Power Station podcast interview to create responsibly, be responsible, and have fun?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's really important to have fun, because it comes through in your music. It's all about that honesty. It's about showing that you enjoy doing what you do. And if you enjoy doing what you do, then people will enjoy it more. Believing in.
That's true.
And there's a responsibility with the art that you create, because these messages become immortal and they live on. The song, of course, you can take a song off the internet, but we're in 2020 now, so people will find a way to make it live on.
Right.
And you're putting energy into the world. And, and that doesn't mean everything has to be heavy or serious or inspirational. I mean, I'll never forget, my first touring experience was with LMFAO. And that's when I really understood that some people just want to go into an arena dressed in zebra print and dance, and have that release.
And their title was LMFAO. Come on now.
Right. Loving my friends and others.
That's true. Sure.
Got you.
Touche.
I think that again is the responsibility that we have to just, in the very least, be considerate of what we're leaving, not only with our contemporaries, but the generations that follow.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I just really love that comment. It really just resonated with me a lot. So thank you.
Here's another nice picture showing you having fun.
Anthony Ramos, right?
Anthony Ramos right there. Yes. So a lot of great pictures you sent us. I wanted to put them all up, but I'm not going to, do that. So, So.
So next question, and I'm kind of full over. This is just great. So Will, DJ Premier, because we talked about hip hop, but he's probably my number one hip hop producer. So his approach to music, he's clever with the samples, scratching hooks. But what did you learn from working with DJ Premier? Just curious about
Yeah, so this was for a movie that came out in 2012 called Regenerations. It was a really awesome film, and I was actually working for my mentor, Steven Weber,
Mhm.
one of my mentors, and he was in charge of the classical plus hip hop portion of the film, because what the film did was they paired producers with other personnel in genres that you wouldn't expect to be collaborating. So I
Mm,
remember they had the remaining members of The Doors and
mhm.
Skrillex, and they had Erica Badu, they had Pretty
Oh,
Lights, they had, I mean, the Crystal Method. There were a lot of heavy
yeah.
people in this film, and so Steven Weber tasked me with contracting a 65-piece orchestra and working on the orchestrations with him for this recording that resulted in the track that they put out from Regenerations.
Hmm.
And what I learned from working with DJ Premier is that he's just so cool. So, and it really, when you are sure of yourself and what you have to bring to the table, then it just allows people to go like this, you
Mm,
know?
mm.
There's no pressure, there's no front, there's no, he was just himself and he was cool. And I remember he went around Steven Weber's DJ class at Berkeley and he said, "All right, well, what are your DJ names?" And I was like, "Well, my name's Will Wells." And he goes, "No, that's great. Don't change that at all. You should keep that." And empowering people and just making them feel comfortable being themselves. And
Hmm.
I definitely picked that up from him. And then also with the actual production work that he did, he was just so simple but effective.
Nice,
A
nice,
lot of
nice.
times we can complicate things and throw in
Mhm.
the kitchen
Yep.
sink, but
Right.
when you listen to a lot of the work that he did in his catalog, it just hits and it just gives you enough to just do this, and it's just enough but never too much. And
Yes.
I think he's excellent at that, and so I learned that from working with him for sure.
And Doug
Outstanding.
can leave today a happy man.
I am very happy. Right, among other things. So I do have a follow up on that, Will. So you talked about your collaboration with Anthony Ramos. I enjoyed the album, The Good and the Bad. I know you're working on
Thank
another
you.
album. Now, bear with me. I might just be, off on this, but the title track, The Good and the Bad, there's segments in there that remind me of DJ Premier's work on Come Clean. Because
Mm.
it's like, it sounds like water dripping, but I didn't know there was any influence there. But it's funny because I'm listening to the album and I knew you work with DJ Premier. So I didn't know that was influence. Maybe that's just my mind and connecting y'all
That,
too. But a great album, by the way. I did enjoy
Thank
it.
you. Yeah, that was a beautiful journey, a labor of love, and Jorgen Odegaard was the main person manning the ones and twos on that track, and I know that he is well versed in all of his hip hop, catalog and just many different influences. So I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't think you're too far off from the plethora of sounds that he has to choose from. I'm sure he was inspired by that.
Yeah,
Which is
great album. Doug. Yeah. Yeah,
great
check out
segue.
the album, by the way, too. I'm sorry. Dear Diary, that's probably my favorite. Love
Uh,
just the vibe, the
that
family
was
feel. And
that one's special. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Great
Which,
album.
which is a
Thank you.
great segue because now we come into Doug's favorite piece of our show, which is Doug.
Oh,
What?
it's time for 4x4 challenge. So, Will, we've been talking about hip hop throughout, amongst everything
Okay.
else that you've worked on and among. So, 4x4 challenge is pretty straightforward. We look at the four pillars of hip hop:
Mhm.
graffiti art, DJing, breaking, MCing, and just ask you as our guest, could you just name one person from each of those four pillars that has connected with you or resonated with you in any way? So, just want to issue that challenge to
Wow.
you as our guest.
Hold on, Keith is in. Here you go.
Okay, hold up. Wait a minute. Could I see the
I don't.
pillars
I
again?
don't think we put that in the questions. We kind of
I
leave
know,
that.
right? That's
Doug
It's
puts
all right.
my last question, but not his because he likes to throw people off.
It's
So
all right.
right. But this is the fun that Will said we got to have. So,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to MCing, I have to say Tupac.
Oh,
there you
okay.
go, Abir. There you go. Abir is happy.
Yeah, I love, you know,
He's a poet.
he's a poet.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
exactly what I was about to say. He's such a
Mhm.
poet.
Hmm.
Um, DJing, I'd have to say, oh, see, this is tough. This is because I was never actually a hip hop head,
Oh,
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
so I don't want to speak out of turn, just because I'm not fully educated enough on it.
It's all right.
I'll never forget Steven Weber. He actually created a course called Turntablism for Berkeley. And so he would hip us to a lot of different DJs, but I remember he brought Grandmaster Flash once.
Oh my
Nice.
god!
And so
Nice.
Wow.
it's almost like a cliche one to name.
Oh
but,
my God, right? But I mean,
A legend, right?
hey,
Right,
yes.
right.
a pillar, there you go.
Shout out to Steven Weber again, man.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah.
Graffiti art, as it pertains in general, or as it pertains to hip hop culture.
I'm gonna say either.
Okay. My other mentor, Richard Gibbs from
Mhm.
Woodshed, he hit me to this squad called the Seventh Letter.
Mm.
And I just remember seeing some of their work, and they were always quite mind blowing.
You taking notes, Doug? Doug's taking
I'm
notes.
taking notes.
Yeah. And the last one was breaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna go a little more contemporary with this one as well. I remember on tour with LMFAO,
Mhm.
there was the Quest crew that was the dancers,
Mm.
and I got to know them really well, and they always blew my mind with what they were able to do on stage.
Hmm.
So check out the Quest crew if you haven't already.
That's cool. You write that down, Doug. Q-U.
Yes. I got it. So first of all, I'm just over the moon, right? So definitely the most thoughtful approach to the challenge.
Mhm.
Number one of the few, this is our 13th episode, one of the few who's met the challenge.
Mhm.
wow.
Shout out to Keith Lewis, because Keith was telling me, like, come on, we coming up short on the breakers and the graffiti artists, right? So Will, just shout out to you. And again, the attention to detail, pursuit of excellence, even when it comes to the 4x4 challenge. Love
Wow.
Will Wells.
Appreciate you.
Give
Thank
that
you.
man a hand.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
absolutely. So I'm going to give also speaking about mentors. This is Sister Slah, as we called her, or Candace. She says, "May Allah bless your efforts. Thank you for
Thank
tuning in." Sister Slah, she was one of my mentors when I first moved to Baltimore. So I love the fact that she's giving us all of this love.
I
Sahara
appreciate
love
that.
this, uplifting, inspiring. This was really inspiring. I also
Thank you.
have to ask you, Will, are you always this calm?
I think so. Yeah.
I think I need to record your voice, and when I need to go to sleep, just listen to Will Wells say the alphabet.
Oh my gosh. I do get excited.
Okay, gotta see that. So we're gonna close off with now my favorite question. We ask this to all of our guests as well, and it's music related too. Which singer or artist would you have performing an album about your life and why?
Wow.
Mhm.
That's a question right
Mhm.
there. I do keep a list.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow.
Of my favorite thing to do is accompany incredible voices. And so I always, whenever I hear somebody that really inspires me, I add them to the list. So first two, of course, Anthony Ramos, Cynthia Erivo,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Kevin Garrett,
hmm
Lauren Desberg.
Okay.
Got to check her out. She's an incredible jazz
Take notes, Doug.
Yeah, taking notes.
artist. Yeah.
I'm on it.
There's a singer named Jocelyn Rivera.
Okay.
whose
I think I've
voice.
heard of her.
Yeah, she was. Speaking of whose voice, she was on The Voice, but
That's probably where
Um,
I've seen her or heard her. Uh-huh.
it's literally a voice that melts my heart every time.
Mm.
And there's actually a songwriter named Kinetics, who just the entirety of his vibe for some reason just gets me. It's I don't think he would consider himself a singer, but I consider him a singer.
Okay.
But also one of the most incredible writers I've ever met, and just the entire swag is everything. So I'd want him a part of the picture for sure. I know I'm missing so many people, so I'm sorry.
No.
And I didn't pull up the list, so this is all from memory. And maybe call on some of the people that have been influential. The RZA,
Mm.
working with him was really influential to me, and
Mhm.
just seeing how he approaches creativity.
Mhm.
It says singer/artists, so I'm
Yes.
going down the list. And there's just so many more, but that's just a few. And
Love
I've
it.
thought about this quite a bit, actually. So
Oh, good. So I'm going to throw a curveball since, Doug gave his surprise question.
Oh,
What-
JP Sachs. Sorry, I can't forget JP Sachs.
There you
One of
go.
my best friends and incredible artist and voice.
So your curveball question to that question, Will, is what would the title of your album be?
It might be Open Heart.
Mm,
Hmm,
mm.
Mm.
You're so cerebral.
How about us? So can we get Kendrick? So like we got Joe throwing up the woo symbol, right? That's all.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
man Joe, and then Kendrick Kenny. Can we pull up Kendrick's? Because I think that punctuates.
Oh, hey, Professor Kenny, how are you? Gems were dropped. Very dynamic brother. Absolutely. You know,
Yes.
Right.
again, like things are never, are not a coincidence. Like I said before, I met your sister early on, even before on the show, and I'm so happy and so glad that we got to meet Professor Kenny, your sister,
Absolutely.
you, the Wells family, because we have Cecilia here also saying, can't wait to hear the musical will be out. Marzella is loving you, Will,
Thank
and
you.
this is your sister saying you. So that's basically solidifying that one as well. We can talk to you forever, Will.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And I know you like to visit people, and if you're ever in the Baltimore area, you have a place to come and visit and stay
you.
and hang out and play some music, and we would love to talk to you again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been tremendous. Yeah.
I appreciate you for having me. It's always inspiring to me to reflect on the journey and not necessarily the result of it or where I am personally in this, but just the incredible people that have poured into me and contributed. My mentors, Stephen Weber, Ivan Barrios, Richard Gibbs, Marcus Baylor, and Samuel Wilson, that have been so pivotal to my path. All the teachers, the family that has supported me, the incredible, powerful women, starting with my mother
Respect.
and my four
Respect.
sisters.
Love it.
It's this always reminds me how grateful I am that I've had the path that I have, and just to keep pursuing excellence.
And I'm going to throw up a picture one more time. Favorites now. So this is how, this I think exemplifies everything. The pursuit of excellence, who you are, Will, everything you represent, and can't thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate you. And I was cutting up before. Will keeps a very busy schedule, as you can imagine. So thank you for taking time to be here with us and share this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot, Will.
All right. Take care, Will.
Bye.
Good night.
Wow. So that was an amazing
That's how you start off. The brother's going to work it out.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry. Let me go back to the banner. Here we go. We have one down.
And as Will pointed out, shout out to Adrian for making the recommendation. So, like you said, the women always represent Black women doing their thing. Will is Will's Will. You all saw it. There's my man Mike. Haven't seen Mike in a while.
Yes. Thank you, Julia. Yeah. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We'd also like to remind everybody again, subscribe to our show.
Right.
Yes. You could also find more on our website under the Real Talk tab. And also you can follow Will on his website. He also is on social media, so that would be great if you wanted to follow him as well. So next week, to add to our amazing show, we have a brother who is dear to our heart, but also one of the most amazing people I've met. We have Brother Sharif El-Mekki. So founder and CEO of the Center for Black Educator Development. The center exists to ensure there will be equity in recruiting, training, hiring, retention of quality educators that reflect the cultural backgrounds and share common socioeconomic interests of students that they serve. So, Doug, you and I had the pleasure of meeting him where?
We were in Philly, the city of brotherly love. So it makes sense to have him.
Absolutely, but I'm telling Doug, like he thinks people from Chicago represent. Wait until you get Philly people in the house. Woo!
All right, I'm gonna need my Be More folks to show up for that. So
we're bring them out.
We're around. Yeah, I got Keith. I think Robin. We got crew. Good up here. So I know we got one more segment. Julia was asking about our YouTube channel. But so this is the YouTube. Oh, you got okay.
Yep, there you go. Real Talk Our Space Julia on YouTube. That's where you can find us. And again, if you can't catch the show. It's always uploaded there. And again, you can also find more information because we add not only the video, but we also add more information about the topic and the person that we interviewed on our Google site. So if you go to the website, you will have a copy of the show and also some more goodies that you can use as well. Keith
Yes,
says he's
please.
here for it.
He's here for it.
Love it. And you're very
Absolutely.
welcome, Julia. Thank you for tuning in. So we are excited again. Tune in next week for Brother Sharif Al-Mekki, who is also, Will is calm. Sharif is very calm too. So we're going to have this amazing aura and energy, and super excited that we're kicking off. Brothers are going to work it out because they sure are.
We are right. And speaking of which, we wanted to pay some respects right before we close out. As everyone knows, first of all, it's just been 2020 has been tough, right? So Bear actually sent a very appropriate tweet about your word for 2020. But the loss of Chadwick Boseman has had this ripple effect throughout not only the Black community, but with the impact he made through Black Panther, the movie, and everything it meant throughout the world, and his age and what just the force he was as an actor, and so just wanted to pay respects to Chadwick Boseman. We have plenty of fallen heroes. I know even this week, Big John Thompson from Georgetown University, and the list goes on. So you all see my Black Panther in the background. Also got my Black Panther here, and I didn't just get these, what I'm saying? Like, I got that. If you like the Funko, the pop, we got that. So just remember, and these were made for the movie, and I remember watching Coogler, the director, and they said they never had anyone else in mind except for Chadwick Boseman, play King T'Challa, the Black Panther. So just definitely rest in paradise,
Absolutely.
brother. And yeah.
Absolutely. And the idea of representation, I don't think people who are not don't understand the power that he has. I have a friend who has an 8-year-old son, and she says he is, he's blocking it out, but he won't watch any of the movies. He hasn't grappled with the loss. So the representation matters, and it's a beautiful tribute to such an amazing person, and the fact that he's left such a beautiful legacy as well, but also to show people that people are going through different things, but he didn't want to live his life out in the open. This is who he was, and a very strong person, and tremendous loss, of course, but rest in power to King T'Challa.
Yes, and like you said, there'll be a lot we can learn from that as we interact with one another, right? All about the humanity, right? That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Cecilia. And then Grant, excellent as always. Appreciate it. Thank you to our new subscribers or to our new viewers. Hopefully we'll see everybody next week. And our music, of course, is always produced by Corey Carter. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Carter Teach if you are interested. And again, just follow us on YouTube or hit us up on our website. All right. Douglas, I will see you soon and next week for a great show.
Looking forward to it. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.